The day after the world watched as 4 astronauts took off to go to the moon for the first time in over half a century, the President of the United States proposed slashing NASA's budget. Think about that. At the exact moment that we're showing the world just how great and how united these states can be, the President is proposing demolishing the very thing that makes us great and unites us. Here's the problem. Most people think NASA is expensive. You see a price tag like $93 billion for the Artemis program, and you think, why are we spending that much money to send 4 people to the moon? Don't we have problems that we could be solving here at home? But here's the thing. NASA is not the reason that other programs aren't being funded. NASA's been getting around $26 billion per year, and while that does sound like a lot of money, when I just paid over $4 a gallon to fill up my tank this morning, it's basically nothing. NASA gets about 0.5% of the annual federal budget. That is half a penny, a hay penny, for every dollar spent by the government. But that's the fundamental misunderstanding about NASA's budget. We think they're getting a lot of money because in isolation, to a regular person, $26 billion sounds like a lot of money. But compared to what we spend elsewhere, it's basically a cup of coffee. But because of that misunderstanding, NASA becomes an easy target for cuts. It's easy to look at NASA in a time of deliberate misinformation about science and technology and say, oh, we're spending way too much money on something we don't need. But those cuts don't just reduce spending. They slow down innovation, they weaken our economy, and they put our planet at risk in more ways than one. But mostly, they risk stalling progress in one of the main areas in which America is truly the world leader. Just by the numbers, NASA returns almost 3 times its annual budget back to the economy. For every dollar spent on NASA, $3 go back into the economy. So on a $25 billion budget, almost $75 billion goes directly into jobs, innovation, industry, taxes, all of it. But besides that, NASA has a very important role to play in some of the most high-stakes problem solving that we face, both as a country and as a planet. On the economic side, the GPS satellite system, which NASA helped develop, brings almost $100 billion a year to the US economy alone. But an outage in that system would cost an estimated $1 billion a day until it's fixed. And we will need NASA to make those fixes. But we also need NASA to be proactively coming up with solutions before problems happen, like dealing with all of the space junk in orbit. On the more existential side, NASA plays a critical role in planetary defense, whether it's by monitoring potential planet-killing asteroids and other objects with many ground-based and space-based telescopes and observatories, or things like the Double Asteroid Redirection Test, or DART mission, which proved that we can redirect an asteroid if it's coming toward us. Without funding for programs like DART or the various observatories tracking objects all throughout space, we won't be prepared or have a solution when, not if, that time comes. So what should we do about this? Well, we should be increasing the funding for NASA, but at the very least, not cutting it. NASA generates tens of billions of dollars of economic output every year and supports hundreds of thousands of jobs in communities all across America. NASA science missions have either created or contributed to a vast amount of technology that we rely on every day here on Earth in industries from healthcare to textiles and everything in between. NASA has already shown that it can provide planetary defense and will need the money and time to continue to improve those efforts. And when you compare costs on other things we spend, the argument becomes even clearer. As an example, the F-35 Lightning program is estimated to cost $2 trillion throughout its lifetime. For that price tag, we could fund 22 Artemis missions to the moon, and that's just one fighter jet. We are currently spending as much in 1 month of the war in Iran as we do in an entire year on NASA. And which one do we get better returns from? So it's not a question of affordability. It's not a question of whether or not we have the money. It's a question of whether or not we have the right priorities as a nation. Okay, imagine 2 futures. In one, We cut funding to NASA, and we keep cutting funding to NASA every year as we've been doing. The Artemis mission slows down, we don't go back to the moon. Other NASA science missions are scrapped, we don't develop new technologies. Observatories and telescopes that we have actually already built and paid for don't get launched and get mothballed. And thousands of high-paying, high-tech jobs are lost. And those people, our best and brightest, go elsewhere and make some other country great. Now, in the other future, we not only fund NASA, we invest in NASA. We go back to the moon, and then we eventually stay there permanently, and we harvest its resources to solve the energy crisis on Earth. We develop new technologies and science that we haven't even thought of yet, and applications for which we can't even imagine yet. We stretch the meaning of what's possible, of what humans can do. And in the process, we strengthen our economy, we advance our technology, and we truly show what America is capable of. And the thing is, the difference between those two futures is a fraction of a percent of the annual budget. Okay, so you're a regular citizen. What can you do? Well, turn all that moon joy you got from the Artemis mission into action. Call your representatives, call your senators, and demand that they vote to fully fund NASA in 2027 and beyond. Tell them that the greatest space agency on Earth is the representation of how great America can be.